U.S. Navy's secret fighter jet no one knows about. The United States Air Force started seeking a replacement for its fighter aircraft in the 1980s, particularly in order to compete with the advanced Sukhoi Su-27 and the Mikoyan MiG-29 that were being used by the Soviet Union, and the Air Tactical Fighter program was launched. The United States Air Force selected Northrop and Lockheed's designs from among the many that were submitted by many firms. While Lockheed, Boeing, and General Dynamics worked together to build the YF-22, Northrop and McDonnell Douglas collaborated on the development of the YF-23. There was, however, another fighter jet in development. In this video, we'll discuss the U.S. Navy's secret fighter jet no one knows about, the NATF-23. So stay with us till the end of the video to know some interesting facts about it. In 1986, the United States Navy started looking into developing its own version of the ATF, which they termed the Navy Advanced Tactical Fighter. The Navy wanted to find a replacement for the long-operating F-14 Tomcat. The U.S. Air Force started looking for new technology for an air superiority fighter for the next generation in 1981, with the goal of eventually replacing the F-15 Eagle. The ability to stealth, supercruise, extreme agility, and short takeoff and landing were among the requirements for the competition. Emerging technology should be incorporated into advanced tactical fighter in the form of more advanced propulsion systems for the engines, advanced fly-by-wire systems, and the potential to operate in a very low observability environment. The prototypes were intended to have a maximum battle radius of 1,300 kilometers, a supercruise speed of Mach 1.4 to 1.5 or higher, and a maximum takeoff weight of 23,000 kilograms. In September of 1985, a request for proposals related to the fighter jet was issued. In May 1986, the Air Force made a modification so that the flying of prototypes would be required for the final decision. In July of '86, Boeing, General Dynamics, Lockheed, and McDonnell Douglas all submitted their ideas. Northrop also participated. In October of 1986, two contractors, Lockheed and Northrop, were chosen to participate in a demonstration and validation phase that would last for a total of 50 months and would end in flight testing of the two technology demonstrator prototypes known as the YF-22 and the YF-23. In accordance with the conditions of the agreements that were reached between Lockheed, General Dynamics, and Boeing, the companies promised to collaborate on the development of the project in the event that just one company's design was chosen. McDonnell Douglas and Northrop also agreed to the same terms. The phase of demonstration and validation required the construction of two copies of each prototype. One of the prototypes was powered by General Electric YF-120 engines, while the other was powered by Pratt & Whitney YF-119 engines. The first YF-23 took to the air for the first time on August 27, 1990, and the first YF-22 took to the air for the first time on September 29, 1990. After that, September 29th of the same year. After that, flight testing got underway, and by the end of October 1990, each competitor had added their second aircraft to the mix. On September 18th of that year, the first YF-23, which was powered by P&W engines, achieved a supercruise speed of 1.43 Mach. And on November 29th of 90, the second YF-23, which was powered by GE engines, reached a speed of 1.6 Mach. During supercruise, the YF-22, equipped with GE engines, reached a speed of Mach 1.58. Testing in flight continued right up until December of 1990. After the completion of the flight testing, the contractor terms presented their suggestions for NATF manufacture. The YF-23 design was more covert and had a higher top speed, but the YF-22 was far more maneuverable. On April 23, 91, after conducting an analysis of the results of the flying tests and the submissions, the Air Force stated that the winning aircraft was the Lockheed YF-22, which was powered by Pratt & Whitney engines. The story does not end here. It merely begins. In 1988, as a result of the intervention from Congress, the U.S. Navy agreed to investigate the possibility of using a navalized version of the U.S. Air Force's Advanced Tactical Fighter as a potential replacement for their F-14s. In exchange, the U.S. Air Force has agreed to investigate a variant of the ATA as a potential aircraft to replace their F-111s. Following this, the Navy constructed a three-person NATF program office at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which is located in Ohio. This office shares its space with the Air Force Program Office. In September of 1988, the Navy awarded contracts to both Lockheed and Northrop to investigate the possibility of developing carrier-based variants of their proposed aircraft. Carrier basing imposes specific design requirements for low-speed capability, low-speed handling qualities, over-the-nose visibility, compactness, corrosion protection, structure, and hardware for catapult launches and arrested landings, etc. For the NATF, for instance, the Navy imposed a maximum takeoff weight of 65,000 pounds and a maximum landing weight of 52,000 pounds as one of its requirements. The Navy predicted that the disparity in the requirements would result in an NATF empty weight, which would be 4,000 pounds higher than the ATF's, and a gross weight difference that would be 2 to 3 times that. Either it would not be longer than the F-14, 62 feet, or it could not fold up to take up additional space. The needs for the fundamental missions of the Air Force and the Navy were likewise very distinct from one another. At the risk of simplifying things too much, the Air Force ATF was supposed to be an air superiority fighter, while the Navy ATF was supposed to be able to take out enemy bombers before they could fire cruise missiles. Their function in fleet air defense needed sensors with a long range, weapons with a long range, and endurance. In addition to this, it swayed the Navy's opinion toward having a second crewman, while the Air Force preferred a fighter with only one seat. As a direct consequence of this, the land-based ATF demonstrators were only superficially comparable to the NATF designs. The Lockheed NATF, much like the F-14, had wings with variable sweep angles. The Northrop NATF kept the fundamental wing platform of the YF-23, but it modified it so that instead of stealthy rudder vaders, it had a canard in front of the vertical fins in the back. Despite this, the engines, as well as a significant portion of the avionics and aviation systems, were planned to be shared, even though the airframes were not. As a potential replacement, the Navy's proposed version of the YF-23, which is known as the NATF-23, was taken into consideration. The initial design for the YF-23 was first taken into consideration, however, and it was determined that a revised design would be necessary due to potential problems with flight deck space management, storage, landing, and catapult launching. 14,000 hours of testing were run on the NATF-23 wind tunnel test model DP527. It had conventional twin tails instead of the rudder vader with serrations for low RCS and increased maneuverability at slower speeds for aircraft carrier operations, folding wing capability for flight deck storage, reinforced landing gear, tail hook, and canards for landing on aircraft carriers, and thrust vectoring nozzles. The NATF-23 was different in many ways. The diamond wing was located as far back as possible, intakes were also different, taking the form of a quarter circle with serrations, and the length and wingspan of the aircraft were to be enlarged to 62 and 48 feet, respectively. Lockheed Martin also submitted their proposal to the Navy with a modified version of the YF-22 Raptor. The Navy unfortunately pulled out of the program before claiming the inability to afford the ATF's weight and program schedule delays as their reasons. At that time, the admirals anticipated keeping the F-14 in service until 2015, which would give them time to construct their very own advanced fighter, with only a limited amount of overlap in terms of the costs associated with developing the A-12. In January of 1991, unfortunately, the decision was made by the Secretary of Defense to abruptly cancel the A-12 program. It had fallen behind schedule in an unacceptable manner and had gained an unacceptable amount of weight. There was no response from Congress on the utter failure of the joint program concept, which was a major concern. The NATF-23 could have been a very compatible aircraft for the Navy had they not decided to abandon the NATF program. Do you think the NATF-23 could have been a success if it was taken in service by the Navy? If you like this video, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to our channel for everyday military updates. Don't forget to leave a comment in the section below. Thanks for watching.